So, how has everyone's week been? How has everyone's month been?
Warm. Warm.
Too warm. It toasty.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready for summer.
I I al- I already run warm, so when stepping foot outside yesterday and today, I was like, I'm melting. No.
As a ginge, I burn. But I like being outside, as you can see. So now, while the sun is gone, I'm like, green stuff. Kind of.
Yeah,
Not the best, but
I can handle the heat. I can't handle the sun, but I do it anyway and just try not to get burned. But the mosquitoes, that's my downfall in the summer months.
Ooh. Yeah.
Constant battle.
yeah.
A friend of mine was talking about some stuff called I think it was permethrin, which you can put in your clothes and will like ward away mosquitoes and ticks and other hungry insect creatures.
I've heard of something like that. Yeah.
I have no idea how like okay it is to have in your general day-to-day life, as opposed to like if you're going to be trying to do search and rescue stuff in the woods, which is what this friend does. So I don't know. But I was like, well, that's intriguing. It's almost like having those like torches with the oil, the citronella, that the bugs are like, no, I hate it. Like it's almost like that, but for your clothes. And I'm like, I could see that being a good
you
thing.
work in the woods every day. Ticks are pretty dangerous, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember them being that dangerous in my childhood, just an unpleasant thing. I don't remember people being as like, but now everyone is like,
About Lyme disease?
and etc.
There have been ticks that have like the like disease that makes you allergic to meat. They've been spotted in like the DC area.
No.
Yep. One of my friends encountered one of those. Not ideal.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not about that life. I like hamburgers a little too much to be about that life. And somebody was saying like all mammal, like that certain kinds of tick bite will make it so that like you can't have cheese, you can't have beef, you can't have pork. Like all of a sudden just all of this is off the table for you, which I'm like
literally off the table. Literally.
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard that it's like red meat, but maybe some people are more sensitive to it or something.
Does pork count as red meat? Because I know that pork is in the category of things that my friend cannot consume.
I do not know. You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think pork is technically no. I don't actually know.
Weird in between.
I know that it is a heavier meat than like fish or fowl. And like higher fat content, but other than that, I don't really know. I don't find myself frequently classifying meats.
She misses the pot stickers. It's very sad. Lauren, you have to show me how to make like tasty samosas or something like some good pasta.
Yeah.
Some vegan foods.
That would be fun. I'd like to have a dumpling making party.
Ooh, that sounds very nice.
I've had some really killer potato dumplings before, so I know it can be done.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
Potato anything, sign me up. Dumpling anything, sign me up. So how could those two things not be beautiful together?
Yeah, I've made dumplings and they've been real tasty. I've made ravioli, which is just dumplings, and they have also been very tasty. I made bao, and that was hard.
I've heard.
That was like I flew too close to the sun. I was so confident. I was like, how hard can it be? Pretty hard.
The answer is quite hard.
Yes.
Yeah. I am familiar with bao being very, very difficult to make. I've never tried to make bao. I just know people who are significantly better at cooking than I am are like, oh, bao.
Hey, it looks like we might be the podcast right now.
Wait, what?
It says we're the podcast.
Oh, ha! I missed
Psych,
that.
YouTube.
Good catch.
Haha! I fixed it.
Lovely.
We should design a more brandy Goblin Book Club banner thing, much like we have for the podcast.
We've got the little goblin with the stacks of books. We just need to put the goblin with the stacks of books on the thing.
Yeah.
On the thing. Yeah.
Well, then we got the. I'll pull it up again. Look at all those good social medias there.
Mm-hmm.
We could have web pages and things. Yeah.
Love web
Yeah.
pages. Love things.
Yeah.
Trick it out.
All right. I know we've only got a few people watching right at the moment, which hello, few people who are watching right at the moment. Do y'all want to get into it? Do you want to dive in? Because I kind of want to dive in.
Do it.
Okay, so top of the order, I must confess that I have been the bad book club host once more. I made it through the first short story and a little bit into the first novella, and then a little bit into the short story between the first novella and the second novella. And that's as far as I got. Not because I disliked the book at all. I actually really liked everything I've read so far. This is probably one I'm going to finish even off of book club time, which doesn't always happen. So take that for what you will. But I will say overall, I've been enjoying what I've been reading. I've been liking it. How do y'all feel about it?
I liked it. Also, confession, I feel like I've been pretty good about finishing lately, but
you're so close.
Just need a little bit more time. I was like frantically reading after work. I was like, oh, gotta kill these pages. I really liked it. Yeah. I thought the Binti was a really engaging protagonist. Sharon?
Oh. Well, same. I only had this much left, so I got through the first novella, the short story, the second novella, and I'm like a third of the way through the third novella. I kind of had a hard time thinking of them as novellas and short stories, though, and I don't know if that was because I was like in a rush, kind of trying to read it, or just like they just bled into each other because as I was reading, I was just like, well, I'll go ahead and start the second book now, or whatever. So I had a hard time kind of like encapsulating each of them onto themselves. So I feel like my timeline is squashed. Like I have an idea of what each of them are about, but I just read through them.
Yeah, I feel like the first one to me felt like a complete arc and story in and of itself, and then sort of the short story and the subsequent two novellas told a pretty linear story, you know, sort of like an episode of a TV show where you have like your high and low, small, but then it's all leading into like one overarching story, rather than like this was sold separately and you pick it up and you read it and you're like, that's done.
The short story definitely felt a little bit like not a fan fiction, but like a short story of here's a thing that's happening while Binti is at school. But it was like very nice too, and they talk about it in the later novellas too. So you know, like felt all nice and connected.
It did feel a little bit like a fan fiction. I think you're right. Like, or like it reminded me of like the like if you read like independent authors, a lot of times if you subscribe to their newsletter, you get like an extra little epilogue, like a bonus epilogue. And then they send you emails, but it's worth it because, you know, you got a double happily ever after.
Like
not so much.
That's almost like that little story that we got at the end of Harrow the Ninth. For those of us who picked up Harrow the Ninth a little on the later side, where there's like the bonus excerpt that kind of leads you into the third book right at the tail end of Harrow. So I kind of get where you're coming from with that. It felt going from the first novella into the short story. I don't know, I guess because they picked up right basically where they left off, it felt like, oh, this will all be interconnected. So it's kind of interesting to hear that the second and third novellas are even more so that case.
Yeah. I also thought that a lot more would be taking place like at the school, but so far, like across the board, not much is happening at the school. And I feel like that if I had not a complaint really, but just I want a little bit more, like I want a little bit more of like the outside world building information. Like I want to know more about like the whole universe that we're in here. We don't even really know like much outside of like the specific part of Earth that Binti is coming from, and I'm like, I need more context. I don't need it, but I would like it.
Yeah, I love the idea of a university that's an entire planet. I think that's super cool and reminds me of a lot of great sci-fi, right? Is it Star Wars where like the whole planet is a city? That's kind of like what came to mind a little bit, except I loved the word is solar punk. It's like steampunk, but with
planets.
With like plants. Where like oh sorry, yeah, like solar technology. I'm like, hold on. Sometimes I say things with like such confidence. Yes. Okay, that's the images that I brought up. It is this type of like it's like the opposite of dystopian and like cyberpunk. Solar punk is like people, it's like generally optimistic. People are generally living in harmony with nature. It's not like this, it's like the opposite of Mad Max. And like with like the pitcher plants that like oil the tracks, and like her sandals are made out of like this like friendly spider silk that like gets like molded into it, and like all of her like items are made sort of like in communion with nature. And I want to see more sci-fi like that. I love it.
And the ship, like that's the third fish. I love the third fish. Like every time they talk about it, I'm like, that's adorable. and like the breathing chambers are like plants
Mhm,
that grow within like certain spaces within the ship. And then the
Yeah.
ship is like pregnant with a smaller ship, and it's going to give birth to another little.
That was so charming. I was like, the ship's pregnant.
So like that kind of thing. I'm like, can we just like hear more about how all of this works? Like, you just mention it, and I'm like, tell me more. I want to know, how did this happen? But yeah, then also like, I was wondering if the solar punk direction that you were going in, Lauren, is like the folks that were introduced to in the third novella, like the but yeah, as like the not ancestral people, but the earlier visiting folk. I'm dancing around things in an attempt not to spoil anything. I don't know.
Homie, don't worry about spoiling me. I'm gonna read it regardless. And I'd rather have the complete conversation we're gonna have.
They're like shiny, harmonizing aliens, and they come and they give you the technology.
Oh, so kind of like Binti and her family are harmonizers. This is like a race specially known for their harmony.
They brought some I'm not sure. I think that they're. I just got to a part where Binti talks about how like harmonizers learn their style of harmonizing from their teacher, because she like encounters another harmonizer who does something completely different. Like she does hers through math and like numbers and equations and treeing and all of that, and like this person like communicates sort of like, it's almost like well that's the alien technology, but then like he can also communicate with like animals and creatures and things. So it's like, it's very different, but then he's from another tribe of people who have this alien technology that's sort of like part of their DNA, kind of.
Yeah, it's like a nanotechnology that's in their bodies.
And the way it's described is like really cool. They sort of like, it's almost like they sign communication at each other, but like it's like it's almost like, I'm imagining it like, you know, Tony Stark's computer thing where he's like sliding things around like that, but other people can't see it at all. So like they're doing it all the time, and a lot of like the other tribes think that they're kind of like, they have like a neurological disease and are like primitive or something, but they actually just have like this very cool alien technology for like long distance communication. It's almost like they're pulling up computer programs in their mind and are like, hey, what's up? And like
a VR system, but like in your brain.
That's so cool.
So they can like type like in the air and send messages and access like ancestral memories and stuff like that. It was pretty cool. The whole like, I mean, I guess I should have seen the twist with like the aliens coming, because she had alien tech and that's what the whole thing is about. But for some reason, when we got to the part where they were like, oh yeah, we got this from like mysterious aliens that visited hundreds of whatever, or like thousands of years ago, it's light on specifics. I was like, what? I don't know. I had to warm up to that one. It just felt like it was out of nowhere.
Yeah, like there was the I was always like curious about the device, what's it called? Edan? The Edan.
She calls it an Edan because in her group that means a piece of technology too old to know its purpose.
Yeah, so I was less surprised about it just because of the Edan, because I was like, well, clearly we're going to have to figure out what's up with this, because no one knows what it does. A piece of old technology. We have to figure that out. But like, none of the methods of any of that being revealed were expected at all. And I'm just like, okay, all right. This is a whole new group of people who can do a whole new other thing that's totally different. But I'm really liking all of the stuff that's happening in the third novella. I just wish I had gotten a little further.
Yeah.
Fair. Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to ask how y'all felt about the result of the encounter with the Medusa, where, like, she is a sole survivor because of this ancient alien text she's holding that they refer to as the Shame, and then ends up not only being sole survivor, but also their ambassador.
Yeah, I thought her situation was pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
To have like a person that killed all of her friends and classmates be like her only, like her closest friend. That was pretty bad. And I don't know, I didn't think it was like far-fetched necessarily, because like she was trying to survive and like, all that, but I found it like pretty dark, like darker than I was expecting, like heavier, I think, especially in the short story and the following novellas, which sort of like dig into sort of the survival and PTSD and the repercussions of experiencing, I don't know, that kind of trauma.
Yeah, it is very trauma heavy in like inner and outer things.
Yeah, it's been a heavy couple of weeks, especially when we're talking about classrooms and children and stuff. And I was reading it and I was like, yep, okay, it's pretty heavy. Not that it wasn't good. It was just like heavy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Situation this poor like 17-year-old girl is placed in like all alone, and like 2 days later she starts like university math classes, and her teacher's like kind of a jerk and is just like, get your shit together, I don't care. When her teacher was like kind of rude, I was like, how dare you?
I thought the transformation in particular seemed troubling. It's a little overly invasive for what you've got going on as a story.
Yeah, I had to go back and read that again to be like, wait, what though? And then was like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's a very invasive change.
Of the
of her.
The tentacles. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okuoko. Yeah.
I will say on this comment, which thank you for contributing, Yell Jones. I feel like the university response to the Medusa to me makes sense because they're a university. They don't want to be at war with an alien race. They would ideally like to not be at war with anybody because it's kind of hard to study when you are active combat zone.
Yeah, I saw it as reasonable but slightly less. Oh, we don't want to be at war, but more like, an opportunity for fame for the university. If we give back this artifact, then we can, study and be like that's kind of the vibe that I picked up there. Like, now we have like this ambassador student and this interesting situation that's happening that everybody can do research on. So I was like, yeah, they would probably give it back because now it's like a whole big thing, and they make the best of that as I don't know.
I tend to agree. I found it a little unbelievable. Like, I mean, I think if they had just come to invade the university, that would have been one thing, but they did murder like 50 children or something, and I just don't see a reasonable response to that being like, cool, come be part of our university, person who murdered a bunch of our like 15-year-old students. And humanity's response, spoilers, makes more sense, I think. Not that I agree with it, but like later in the novellas, I'm like, yeah, like, I don't know. I thought it showed like a lack of care from the university, which kind of is reflected in, I think, the short story, which is most of our university time. And like, it's cool and interesting, but it does not seem to be a touchy-feely place, like, at all. Like, they don't care about her feelings. They don't care if she's fitting in. They make weapons. They have a whole university and city devoted to like the manufacture of weapons. And so then I was like, okay, maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of also like the fact that the university is made up of, I think it's said, like, more non-human or humanoid creatures than humanoid. So having a sort of inhuman response to something that humans would respond to in a very particular or human emotional way, I could see it, especially if they're academic snoots.
Yeah, I hadn't considered it from the angle of, you've just arrived on a transport full of murdered children. Well, sure, we'd love to have one of you on this campus. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does seem like I'm not sure how to pronounce our author's first name, and I don't want to mangle it. But it does seem like the way she wrote that, like, that particular section, she was like, look, I need to get past this to start doing the things in these books that I want to be doing. And so it's not gonna make all the sense in the world, but it'll be fine.
Yeah, I think kind of what Sharon said is just like, humans are unimportant in the university's perspective, and that's the only way I can be like, maybe it makes sense. But what did you think, Sharon, of home? And like the exploration, the second one, and like the exploration of the Himba culture more. I don't know, and that's kind of where we also meet the desert people, like the other tribe.
Yeah, I really liked that part, and sort of seeing a little bit more of that world building ish, like more insight into what Binti's home situation looked like, and just like the culture in general. Oh, I had a thought and it escaped me as I was flipping through here. Let me flip through and maybe it'll come to me again. Oh no.
Yeah, it was like just being caught, like her being caught between like the sort of traditional cultural values and her like really valuing it and at the same time being hindered by it. I don't know. I felt it was like so frustrating to like see it through her eyes, and like both that like love and constraint. And I think it did a really good job of kind of like navigating those like complicated feelings.
Yeah, the parts where they're talking about like her internal conflict and like trying to sort of like please all sides, and there was a part talking about like how to be a master harmonizer, and it's like you're not supposed to be like changing for each person that you encounter. You're supposed to be like steady and the same so that everything can harmonize, which I thought was interesting and reminded me of like a metronome, which is like math. So everyone can like set themselves accordingly.
Yeah, all the math, so much math.
So much math. She can go hang out with everybody in Nine Fox Gambit, and they can like do weird formulas and stuff, and be really happy.
I totally thought of that, and like the math as magic and the ability to like affect the world around you through math. It's like Nine Fox Gambit all over again. In a good way.
We have a big comment, so I'm going to go ahead and read it out for everybody else. Did the plot ever seem too convenient / contrived for you? For instance, she has the plot device cube. She spends 2 years of her life doing advanced mathematical study of it before getting on the spaceship to go to uni, but never realizes there's a button to press on it until right when it's necessary to translate things for her. There seem to be a lot of plot contrivances, too, that exist to make her relatable to the Medusae and vice versa. I will say, when it comes to mystical devices and trying to interact with them, I could absolutely see a high-stress situation causing you to look at it in a way you have never looked at it before. Because the human brain is weird like that. When you are all jacked up on adrenaline and grief and survival instinct, all of a sudden, like, the whole world looks like a different place, even if only briefly. So that part didn't seem too far-fetched for me, although I will say it is mighty convenient that it is perfectly aligned to translate Medusa's speech for her. It was like, okay. But to find out that it's a race of like super powerful alien harmonizers, it feels like that was the plan from the get-go, was this is a harmonizing device, right?
Yeah, I kind of let go of like to me, I viewed it as like magic. So it's not like, you know, the sword always glows when it needs to glow kind of a deal. You know what I mean? So like, yes, I think it was a little bit contrived, but like in the way that like fantasy is, because it's like the force works when you need it to work kind of a deal, and it runs on like an emotion. I don't know, the emotional highs of the story rather than like science, like hard. It's not like hard sci-fi from like the way I experience the story. It's just, you know, she's doing magic.
Yeah, I think I applied similar like fantasy magic rules to it. Like after one too many things happened in a sort of mildly convenient way, I was just like, okay, it is the magic sword that glows. Okay, cool. But yeah, there I will say that there seem to be a couple of like little, not necessarily shortcuts, but kind of like shortcuts where I'm just like, but but I want to know more, or that's just so convenient. Are you going to circle back to why it's convenient? And then we never really like go back to it at all. And I'm just like, I want more information on the whys, please.
I think the part that felt kind of that way to me was less the device and more the oil and clay mixture that she keeps on her skin is a super healing thing for this race of aliens. And like, oh, good thing that worked out. It's like, but now hold on a minute. How does any of that work? I don't understand.
That was the moment I was like, it's magic. Because that doesn't make any sense. It's not explained in any way that's logical. At that point, I agree. I was just like, all right, it's magic. It works because of her, like, whatever emotional connection and the symbolism and yeah.
I thought it was very. I thought in the second one where they're going back to Osemba from university, and Oku is going with her, and she puts the ochis on like 3 of his like tentacles, so that he can like be so that it will be pleasing to her family, which I just thought was like nice. Like that's cute. Very good. Oh, I just realized that I did not use the proper pronouns, but I have had a very hard time with Oku's pronouns because it's referred to as it, and I've had such a hard time with that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Also, I also thought it was very interesting that all of the other alien species referred to at the university, the writer refers to them as like another person who looks like this, or another person that is similar to Oku, or another person who is kind of like a praying mantis, but like very big. They're all referred to as person, so like the choice to go with like it's as the pronoun of choice, it just sort of threw me. My brain is scrambled easily.
Yeah, I thought that was a very interesting and like clearly intentional choice.
Yeah, I was wondering if it maybe had something to do with like the hive mind situation of that race of aliens, but
that's what I assumed. And I think to also make it seem more alien. I mean, it's already like a squid thing, so like it's already very alien.
A jellyfish,
just to like remind you, a jellyfish. Sorry, not the same thing as a squid. How dare I?
Did you notice the dedication in the front of the novel?
I don't think I did.
I did.
Well, check it out, Lauren. Share with the class.
All right. Dedicated to the little blue jellyfish I saw swimming in the Khalid Lagoon that sunny day in Sharjah, United Arab Emirates. Very cool. I love a good dedication.
Jellyfish.
I did a little quick Googling so that we can say the author's name. It is pronounced, her full name is Nedima, and it is pronounced Nedi. So
Nedi?
N
Cool.
Neh Dee is how she has written it out. So, and it's Okorafor.
Cool.
So the what was I going to say? It was interesting, the juxtaposition between how it was alien life forms were written about in To Be Taught a Fortunate versus how they were written about here. Because in To Be Taught a Fortunate, they're like, okay, so we're gonna say ant-like, but we need to come up with something more specific than that, because if we say ant-like, we're gonna be describing like 20 different things, and they're probably not even remotely related.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very specifically human based in how things are described, while also, like we were saying, seeming to be kind of like implying so much more than human, at like human very non-central to the functioning of the galaxy universe situation that this is in. And I want to hear more about how the houses work. Like they talk about the root covered in like bioluminescent plants, and then there's the ship and it's alive, and I just want to know about all these things. And the only humans that we do hear about are Himba and Kush and the longer name that we just got introduced to in the second book. like there aren't like, even at university, like they're not like, and here's the weird British professor, which is like, great, who needs more of those? We have enough. But I just thought it was very interesting that every human that we meet is a human from the tribe that hates the Okwu's tribe or species.
Yeah.
Oh, the Kush.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like most sci-fi, by the time humans make it to space, they're pretty unified. So that was an like that's like I don't know, maybe not, but I feel like it's commonly it's like the human, like the Earth Galactic Alliance or something, right? And like everyone's represented by like one governing body, or humans aren't represented by one governing body and they're just like out there being spacers or something, you know?
I think it's kind of interesting to see it explored that way. There's not a lot of series that have, because I think the assumption is at the point that humanity is capable of distance space travel, like really expansive distance space travel, that we're probably a post-scarcity society, at which point, why are we doing things like war on each other? Because it's not like we need to fight for resources, we're post-scarcity. But then you've got series like Firefly, where they literally have space civil war.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like The Expanse, where it's like Earth v Mars v Belters. Maybe there's some more thrown in there. But like Earth is like Earth, and it's versus Mars. So I guess like the humans are fighting, but Earth is still united.
Yeah, it seems very interesting that even like little isolated pockets of society, like the Himba are described, are still like super mega advanced in technology in a way that still seems to be like at a normal par for when she goes to university. Like there's no like moment of being overwhelmed by any of that.
And at the same time, they're like surprised that the desert, like they don't know anything about the desert people who live like a 3-day walk away from their city. there's definitely like you just have to let. I'm just like it's a fantasy. Let it go.
And
This-
I've been enjoying.
I had that a couple of times. They're riding a camel through the desert, and I'm like, I mean, Star Wars is like that too. There's like spaceships, and they're also riding tauntauns.
That's on
Right?
Hoth.
There's
Yeah,
there's tauntauns on Hoth,
guys.
Yeah,
Bantha.
And Banthas. What are the big lizard ones that show up?
dugongs, I want to say.
Yeah, I watched.
Or maybe that
Kenobi,
might be
so
a
it's, like
Pokemon.
on my brain.
No, I think it is a Pokemon, but I think that the sounds are close.
I was just gonna Google real quick Star
Tatooine
Wars lizard.
What is it? A dewback. So very close.
Dang it! Oh, it's so close.
You got one whole syllable correct. You got two syllables.
Well, now I just want a Star Wars Pokemon crossover, because that would be magical.
Or in space.
You know what? Somewhere out there, I bet it exists. There's some artwork. There's some story.
The fan fiction is there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
For this series, I think I did find it difficult that it's like, oh yeah, the Kushtu dealing with the Binti, or sorry, with the Himba. Binti's from the Himba. The Kushtu dealing with Himba, but they don't really like know that much about them, and they kind of see them as like primitive dirt dwelling people, and it's like, what? How does we don't have a lot of fresh water, so we bathe with dirt and oil, like any number of natural creatures might? Like, how does that not make sense? Like, what?
Yeah, especially if things are so advanced that the ships are literally things that are alive.
Yeah.
Like someone somewhere would be like, oh yeah, the science of that makes sense.
Maybe the whole issue is that the Kush are like, but they could have unlimited water from the saltwater repositories they have, and also from air gathering, if they would just use these specific technologies that they for some reason think are like evil for some reason or something like that. Like maybe we're just missing the context.
I think it's just racism.
Fair.
I think it's just like my reading of it was this is a cultural practice born of like practicality, but they don't need to anymore. They have water, they have technology, and it's only the women that wear it anyway. So it's like very much a cultural practice. And
have y'all Googled the actual practice?
I have not.
Oh no, I haven't.
Because I've seen like pictures.
It's
but
it's a thing.
But yeah,
lots of.
That was my reading. Is just like the Kush are kind of racist, and that's why they are like those people are dirty.
The hairstyles, super cool, super intricate braiding, and then like the ochis that they put on it, and then like braiding things in. And when she's like talking about her sister's hairstyle, I'm just like, gotta Google it. I want to see what all of this looks like.
Yeah, Google solar punk too. Everyone, folks at home, it's very cool.
I really liked before they were sick jellyfish tentacles. I really liked that her braids had a tessellating pattern that talked about like her family and their traditions and where she's from and who she is. Like, that's so cool to me.
I think that it do be like that in actual Earth.
What did you think of like the symbolism of her braids turning into the tentacles, like I kind of took that to be like you are sort of like fundamental, like you're changed as a person from experiencing, violence like that. Not completely, but like a part of you is. I don't know. Open to other takes, though.
No,
I was like, it means something. It's
I totally agree with that. And then like later when she's having like her anger issues, and then it's explained to her sort of like, oh yeah, well, like that's the Okwu's people. Oh no, what's the alien? What's the species called?
Are you looking for Medusa?
Yes, that's the Medusa, which is just so on the nose there. That's the Medusa's like just species specific latent anger coming out in you. Like that's why you're mad. But having that sort of be a it works as like a metaphor for trauma also. So it's just like
It does feel a little bit like trauma changes you, especially something that massive. The thing that worries me a little bit, like about that message, is that war will steal your culture from you. Like, this she's in this terrible situation, and now she can't braid her hair with her family's patterns anymore because it's no longer her hair. And so it's like, God, that's so dark and heavy.
There's a lot of dark and heavy things. Yeah.
It's a dark and heavy series mixed in with all of the spaceship whales and, talking to elephants and stuff.
I got very excited about the mention of space whales. I won't lie.
I have read
fish as a shrimp, just a little shrimp ship. I'm just like, it's so precious.
I have read several other books with living spaceships. I should see if I can come up with a short list. To mind is Sisters of the Vast Black, about space nuns. And gosh, I can see the book in my mind. It's like Honor, and it's like pink, and it's like a whale, and the ship is like alive and like talks to the couple people that live in it, and will like make rooms according to their wishes. Pretty cool.
Ooh. Brandon and I very recently did a review of Spelljammer 2E because the 5th edition Spelljammer book just I think is coming out very soon.
This is the little fish.
What do you...
This is what she said she based her fish on, the ship.
Oh my god.
This precious little fish floating around.
What a cutie.
Oh, so beautiful.
Sorry, I got distracted and it was so cute. I had to shove it into the camera.
But Spelljammer is a series of living ships in a like D&D world where all the ships are made up of these like organic creatures that have kind of their own will and kind of are like symbiotic with the people who live aboard them.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Ships that are alive. Very cool. And alive in like the whale way, not alive in like the AI way. I feel like those are there. I've also read several with the alive in the AI way.
Whale or AI? my new metric for
my two favorite kinds of ships.
In what way is your ship alive?
I like it.
So, yeah, I liked the series. I'm definitely. I mean, I'm gonna finish the last 30 pages. I thought it was very interesting. I liked a lot of the concepts. A touch dark for this moment, for my moment. Not everybody's moment, my moment right now. But I liked it.
I concur on all fronts.
So, just as kind of moving to our next point of order, I've been super busy between work, life, etc. I completely beefed. We had a full 5 books for a poll. I whiffed it. I whiffed it hard. We had a quick conversation before we started the call today, and we're basically like, let's just pick a book so that everybody can go get the book and we can start reading the book sooner than later. And we will keep the books that were on the poll before, and we will add a book to that poll to replace the book which we decided on as a group, which, Lauren, if you will tell us a little bit about Light from Uncommon Stars.
Yes. So I have not read this book, but it is one of the 2022 Hugo Award nominees. I'll read you just a little teaser description from Storygraph. Light from Uncommon Stars. Let's see. Description. Good Omens meets The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet in this defiantly joyful adventure set in California's San Gabriel Valley with cursed violins, Faustian bargains, and queer alien courtship over fresh-made donuts. It looks to be fun, adventure-y, and I think it'll make a good read.
I like it. I like it.
And queer for Pride Month. Yay.
Hell yeah. I am particularly keen on the fact that it is a combination. The synopsis is like, it's a combination of 2 books that book club has read and very much enjoyed. I don't know that we've universally read Good Omens, but I know it pops up in chat a great deal. So I think the majority of our book club folks have.
A fave of mine. Supposedly we're getting a season 2 of the miniseries.
As much shipping as I have seen done online of Azrael and Crowley, I can only imagine that'll be good for the internet.
Some positive vibes out there for everyone.
I support more angel demon history romps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, that'll be next month's book. I'll go ahead and post up a thread for it, and we will see about whether or not we can get it ordered from Alpha Comics and Games, conveniently located in Willow Lawn, Richmond, Virginia. I know I will need a copy one way or another. Let's go ahead and jump into plugs for this month. Lauren, what would you like to plug this month?
I have nothing new to plug. Just if you want, you can follow me on Instagram at Feminist Reading List, where I read and review all kinds of books, mostly sci-fi, fantasy, and romance. I have already planned some good queer book recommendations for June, so you can look forward to that.
Sweet. Sharon, you got any
not so much. It's summer. Pride Month starts tomorrow. Get out there and do stuff. Find somewhere to volunteer. It's my plug. It's very general. Take it and interpret as you like.
I think my plug is going to be something I do every year for Pride Month, which is look up some charities and give some money to groups that are doing positive LGBTQ stuff. A longtime favorite of mine is the ACLU, who does a lot of work for not just LGBTQ folks, but also for minorities, making sure that legal stuff is fair, which is generally not the case. And especially right now, where legal stuff seems to be kind of wonk, I think supporting groups like the ACLU will be very important for the next year or 2 or 4. I guess we'll see. Hopefully things get better. We'll see. But I will be donating a little bit of money this month to the ACLU. And you know what? I think I'm going to try and find an opportunity, like Sharon was suggesting, to volunteer somewhere. I will post info in chat if I find something cool that maybe we can do as a group locally, because that'd be fun.
That would be delightful.
Yeah, I would like to plug my favorite local queer charity. So ACLU, amazing, does big stuff that's really important. And I like Casa Ruby, which is a DC organization, community center that provides housing, healthcare, and services to trans and gender nonconforming folks in the area. So
phenomenal.
They're pretty cool.
That was Casa Ruby, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's for DC. I'm sure that there's another organization in Richmond if you want to keep it local.
Yeah, we can shout out Side by Side, which is local to Richmond. Ooh, there's a giant cricket right there. It's hello. But works with queer youth support programs and good stuff generally with Side by Side. Ooh, I'm just disappearing into the night now. Goodbye, everyone. Ooh.
Well, it's reminding me of when we had Mr. Moore on and he was in his Jeep, just slowly vanishing into the darkness.
Good stuff. Do like a horror situation or like a rave. Yeah.
All right. So if y'all have some local LGBTQ charities you'd like to shout out, we can shout them out in the book club chat, or honestly, we've got the promotional material chat as well over at bit.ly/goblin discord. If you're not on there already, get on there, because anytime we're talking about book stuff between book club meetings, that's where we're doing it. So I know I'm in there a lot. I know Sharon will pop in to have strong opinions about book things. I know Lauren will pop in very frequently with book-related memes, which is sometimes just some of the best memes possible. And yeah, so we'll see you there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Do we have any final thoughts, comments, anything y'all want to get into before we close it out?
No, thanks for joining.
Yeah.
All right. Thank y'all for hosting, and thank everybody who tuned in and who commented in the chat. And we will see y'all next month on June the 28th. Bye, y'all.